Good morning. How's everybody doing? I had some walk-on music, but I thought I would make it a separate slide and bring the lyrics up for you. This is our 2020. In the water feels so fine, 145 degrees all the time. All right. We can talk about that later, but we did a little gift for clients talking about the pandemic and climate change and flat Earth. It's on itwasflatallalong.org. It's still up. But I'm Wilson Brown. I'm from Philadelphia, greatest city on the planet. I've met a couple of Philly-connected people here. But I live in New York. I'm the executive creative director and a managing partner of Antfood. And we've been around since 2007. We make music and sound for brands and ideas. And we aim to use our craft to improve and in some ways change the way people perceive their experience in the world around them. So quick little intro. This is sort of a film about how we work, what we care about, why we do it.
Antfood is a studio and production company working in music, sound, and audio design. We have worked tirelessly to build a living, breathing machine where creativity flows effortlessly with the systems and infrastructure to execute at scale. Our talented team of creatives, producers, and sound designers work from the ground up, understanding the intricacies and the impact of music and sound. We build equipment from the circuit up. We develop software to push the boundaries of what is possible through sound. And we understand how voltage, bits, and the density of air molecules can be manipulated to make us feel something meaningful. We work with our minds, our hands, and the most essential instruments, equipment, and techniques in a long history of sound creation. Antfood composes award-winning music for linear media. Through sound, we convey mood and message for advertising, film, marketing, and product. We are pioneering creative solutions for experiential media, from extended realities to large-scale installations. We're paving a path for nonlinear composition, spatial sound, and reactive, generative musical environments that accompany a new phase of media consumption. For sonic identity and branded audio systems, we apply the rigor of our processes while leaving strategic openings for inspiration to strike, offering brands vision, value, and results as their sonic identities go out into the world. Our work conveys and elicits emotion while never losing sight of function. It touches millions of people daily in a subtle yet impactful way. We are cooks, philosophers, artists, and pragmatists, and we make robots who can rap. We love what we do, and we bring this passion to every project. Antfood, the creative audio studio.
Cool. So, thank you. It's nice to see this on a big screen. We believe in many things, but let's start with we believe in two things. First is dream work makes the team work, as the old adage goes. And also, all good work is done the way ants do things, little by little. So this is how ants do things. Okay. And it's not sped up. It's pretty impressive. That's real time. And so today I want to talk about collaboration. especially like over the past year, and I think what that, what it looks like moving forward. I also, I know this is largely a visual crowd, and I wanted to maybe throw my, hat in the ring for some graphic design and typesetting, as you can see in these two things. So yeah, collaboration in the time of Corona. It's been a challenging 2020. I think everybody has experienced this professionally, emotionally, in a number of different ways. As a studio, as individuals, there was a lot of loss in many different ways, but we survived it. We set out in March and made a plan. I'll talk a little bit about that later. We followed the plan. And we were, all of the things, resilient, scared, that, everybody goes through. We were incredibly fortunate as well. But most importantly, looking back, we were ourselves. We did, in my opinion, I think, a handful of amazing things over the past year and a half. We've, we did a piece for the New Yorker Festival where we had to create an authentic bebop jazz quintet in a time period where we couldn't put two people in the same room together. We also, had a sound design soundscape of like a bustling New York City at a time where we weren't going down into the subway, and there were no people moving around the parks and streets. We did a massive sonic branding project for CBS. It's their first ever complete overhaul of the brand, and we established a sonic for them based on the classic announcer voiceover call out of "This is CBS," and worked for 9 months with the president and the CMO, Mike Benson, and Zoom calls of 40 people where like CBS Sports and news and brand and syndication and media ventures are all fighting, each other on a call. But it was a important and meaningful project for us. We actually were bidding it as, as we were shutting down. So it really lasted those first, or not shutting down, but going remote. So it was like the first 9 months of our pandemic. It was great. There's like a long case study about how we made this, but here's the federal one. We're building a product, which is, I wanted to give a little pitch for this here. We're trying to create a smarter music search. If there are, small studios interested in licensing or, beta testing the work, or some badass UX designers that are looking for a gig, we have an MVP and some design. I'm reluctant to say library or stock music because I hate those terms, but that's maybe one way to imagine what we're building. And, there's a new Windows, so we can launch that. All kinds of fun stuff, yeah, but another meaningful project is IBM had reached out to us to help leverage their AI data, which they've recorded every single point of the last number of US Opens. And so we worked with IBM, ESPN, and USTA, United States Tennis Association, to create fake crowds for last year's US Open. It's nice to see this summer that they didn't need the software anymore, but it was a pretty elaborate and meaningful experience. We also got to go and see Serena Williams, as there were only 2 people in the stands.
Originally, we were approached by IBM to essentially fill the void of an empty stadium.
We leveraged IBM's AI data to analyze the crowd reaction to every point from the past few years of the US Open.
And then, most importantly, we were tapped to do the opening titles for the inaugural Dash Bash. And so, yeah, that was a highlight of the year. But still, we were sad. It was sad, and we were apart. And I think this is probably more meaningful to me than to you all, but this is like the, everybody's dream team, but this is, Marina and Pedro from Amsterdam, Kat, me, Yuta, Sue in New York, Chris, Luis, Lo in Sao Paulo. And, it's like a vibrant and happy group of people. And I kept this. You can see how dirty I keep my laptop screen on April 29th, 2020. But I like to remember it because we were all really sad, like we were doing good work, we were busy, we were safe, but there was a sadness that, I think it's important to process. So, in a couple days, we really went from working like this. Love this picture. This is just our New York team, to working like this. How'd it go, Dalton? So, it's like, technology is amazing, but it's not the same. And so, we've always taken a lot of pride. I'll show, you've probably seen some pictures of the studio, but, we're a physical, a tactile, and interpersonal craft, that requires equipment, it requires rooms, it requires people getting along and working together. So we always put so much stock in our physical space and have invested heavily in creating, real studios that are a joy to work in. And so, we've always believed since the beginning of Antfood, create a place where the magic can happen, get a team together, and let the people know that they belong there. So, at that point, our place was empty. This is our live room in New York. This was it, the other day. Studio A is sort of like a storage closet, I guess. And our tools were collecting dust. We have all these fun toys that we've worked so hard to accumulate, and I have some Eurorack and a bookless system and modular synths here on the left. There's this Neve console on the right, which if you don't care about audio, Dave Grohl made a love letter documentary about this this console. It's from Detroit. I know there are a lot. Ours is from Detroit. I know there are a lot of Detroit people here. But for us, it's a really big deal. It's I think the piano and this recording console are these symbols of what we do, and not everyone had access to them. We have all these fun toys. This is still from our website. We love guitars, tape delays, all of this fun, tactile, physical stuff. And there's this magical piece of equipment called the Eventide DSP 4000. It's just a really special effects processor that's just used for audio. You can do delays and reverbs and distortion, and it's called the Eventide DSP 4000. It's a great piece of gear. And importantly, most importantly, the team, everyone we were all together, but, we weren't together. This is from March 15th. I think it's actually maybe the 12th or something, but, Spencer and Trevor, two people in our New York team, they're loading a synthesizer into Trevor's car, and I didn't see the two of them in person, at least, for a while. Okay, so why do we collaborate? I think everybody talks about this. Everybody, probably has similar reasons. For us at Antfood, there are two really important reasons, right? There's great talent and great ideas multiply. I believe there's no finite ceiling to success, to creativity, to genius. And we operate under the thesis that a team of talented people are always going to be able to do better work, more work, faster work than a super talented individual. And so we put a lot of stock in the team. The next is critique. We're founded on an art school critique, which can be jarring and surprising for people who don't come up through that. But the rule is that we work together to make the work go from good to great. So we're, in general, you need to articulate very clearly what could be better, why it could be better, and some suggestions or ways of how it can get better. And we do that as an iterative process. We do that as a team. There's I think this is a golden wolf-ism, so credit to Dottie and Ingi, but I think, Ingi's told me before, that they say, good enough is not good enough. It's really easy to make good enough work, but through this process of constructive critique, we can make something that goes from good enough to great. And so it can be really hard, right? It's like really hard to bring something into existence even without the criticism. And then, you find something that you love, you sculpt it into something that you're proud enough to show other human beings, and then, to hear that it's not good enough or it could be better can be really, crushing. And I think we all have to train ourselves to, be optimistic about like what the end result and the end goal is. And it's really important the way we frame and phrase feedback. It can be hard to hear it from your peers, your bosses, your clients. And I would say, maybe this is true with all of the art and the craft in this room, but I think especially there's something unique about music, whereas as a creator, you have to put a large part of yourself, your heart and soul, your guts, your emotion, whatever, into it, just to make it valid enough to resonate with other human beings. And so it's especially hard. I'm still working on this. I've done this since I was a kid. But with young composers and people, I think I always like to make clear that to succeed in this world, you have to put your all into something, and then you have to be ready for somebody to come in and strip everything you loved out about it and replace it with something else. And as a general process, what we're trying to do is create a system where that makes it better rather than worse. And yeah, so I think there's a good Schopenhauer quote of that sort of finds this distinction, but he wrote, "Music is not a copy of ideas like the other arts. It is a copy of the human will itself. The effect of music is so very much more powerful and penetrating than is that of the other arts, for these others speak of the shadow, only of the shadow, but music of the essence." So that's what we do. And I think, I would also say there's no room for egos. There's no room for ego in Antfood, but it's really there's no room for assholes. I think in a Freudian sense of the word ego, you do need something to push it along, to drive it, to have confidence, to take an idea out of the ether and turn it into something presentable. But we need to couple that with humility, which can also, alone can also be incredibly dangerous, that you just look around and aren't really sure what to do or don't have the confidence. And so I think, for us, the magic lies in this tiny little sliver between ego and humility, where there's enough of a drive and a push and a risk to put yourself out there into the open, but the willingness, for feedback, to be open, to collaborate, to take ideas and make something stronger. And, we talk a lot about creative decision-making. I'm of the belief that in any type of endeavor, you come to thousands of little forks in the road and you can choose one direction or the other direction. And there's no right and wrong in the creative process. You can do things many different ways. But I do believe that the sum or the aggregate of all of these thousands of little decisions, if you make better decisions, and better is really just like a proxy, right? It could be more consistent decisions, it could be riskier decisions, it could be safer decisions, whatever we're going for, but the sum of all of those decisions is what separates good work and great work. And again, with the team, doing this as a collection of humans as opposed to an individual human absolutely helps make the right choice more often. So that's my pitch for why collaborate. I have a piece. I'm going to really show the case study, but just a little snippet of this. We did sort of a piece for Maxon, who I understand is sponsoring a round of drinks for us tonight. But these things, we worked with foam, and we looked at it more as like a thought leadership piece of where we could show off techniques a little bit. We could, sort of make some ideas and suggestions of what sound design could be in the 2020s. I think we did this in 2019. And it was really nice because, I largely worked on it with Dalton, Utah, and who maybe you guys know. He's like an Instagram star. And Pedro, who works in Amsterdam for Utah. And it was a really meaningful thing, and I remember and Utah doesn't he goes to bed at 7:30 p.m. He's out of the studio at 7, so we were there until 9 or 10. We just looked at each other as we were doing the final mix, and we're I don't know, people they're gonna like it or they're gonna hate it. And it was nice, it got a lot of like industry and peer and trades recognition, and we're really proud of the craft. But this is like especially a piece that had so many disparate parts that like a human brain could not just make sense of how to put them all together in an artistic, intelligible manner. That's it. Here's a case study.
The idea was to instill supernatural spirits into household objects and to create a rich sonic world out of ones and zeros.
Like if these sounds lived in a utopian digital 16-bit, sometimes 8-bit universe.
As for the little creatures, we gave each a voice through vocal processing, synthesis, music, and sound design.
We used a variety of digital techniques, including early sampling keyboards such as the Kurzweil K2000. We also developed custom software using computer vision to analyze Foam's video, find patterns of movement, and generate random notes and triggers for the various synthesizers we're using.
As the animation progresses and the object begin wielding greater influence over the environment, the soundscape becomes more and more dense and rebellious.
We often looked back to move forward, and we enjoyed exploring both popular and forgotten digital techniques to craft a soundscape that floats between the mundane and the otherworldly.
Cool, thank you. So 03, how we collaborate. I like to believe, ritual is something that's special. I've seen this come up in a couple of people's talk. I think it was especially important during the pandemic. But it's really the meeting of routine and spirit, or magic, or however you want to call it. And I think in an obvious way, or in a superficial way at least, we lost a lot of our rituals. We lost, spontaneity. We lost a common ground to understand where each other were coming from. This unspoken understanding and, facial expressions, eye contact. Hands-on mentorship has been really hard. We do a lot of digital stuff, and we're working remotely for the most part. We have some people back in the studio, but especially training with like instruments and equipment, it's very, very hard to do over video. Critique and communal lunch. We eat lunch, we used to eat lunch together every day, which was a big deal. And it's just, it was always a special thing. I always put a lot of stock into it, and it was, an expense that we incurred or offered. But it's amazing how much it comes up in terms of like, even like new hires, like, well, before the pandemic, we used to eat lunch together every day. It's like, so everyone appreciates that, and it was such a nice thing. And performance, music is a performative and collaborative art form, and it's harder to do in an environment where we're remote. So, I think we started thinking, well, what fills the void? There's some like obvious things that we do. On Friday evenings, we'd have a standing, open hangout or Zoom call where it wasn't mandatory or obligatory or anything, but anyone could join after they were finishing the work week. We were all kind of home, locked up anyway, and it was a fun sort of moment where everyone could decompress and not talk about work. We'd always have we'd get on Zooms. Here's my really filthy laptop again, but we did this in person too. But we'd have sing Happy Birthday, and we got into a trend where whoever's birthday it was would have, instead of giving a speech or something, would sing a song.
We'll give it a shot.
It's really nice too to it's evidence of how hard it is to make music together with video latency. And simple things too. We would do talks like this. We'd talk about where we're going, what we're doing, what's important, what matters, looking at, sharing tools, sharing metrics. I think there's something, fun to see that the week before Christmas we did, I don't know, 200 tasks or something, and then the next week we did nearly 0. And keeping people engaged. Once it was sort of spring, we would get together, had some oysters on our obligatory Antfood watermelon tray. But that wasn't enough, and it wasn't really what our ritual was. Our ritual actually is the work. It's always been the work. And we realized at a point, that can continue, and regardless of what our physical environment is. And so I don't know if anyone in this room has read Jim Collins. He writes sort of more MBA management consultancy books, but I think they're really relevant for probably all industries, but especially the creative industry. And one of the theses in his book that's called Good to Great, I would recommend it for anyone interested. It's really about Fortune 500 companies, where the concepts work. So you have this concept called the hedgehog concept, and the idea is that there's a fox and a hedgehog. And the fox is really smart, it's sly, it's crafty, and it's always scheming. And one day it tries to charge the hedgehog head on. It doesn't get him, then it tries to sneak up behind, then it maybe digs a hole and tries to pop up and surprise him. One day maybe it hides behind a tree, and every day, it's trying something different. It's changing its plan, and ultimately unsuccessful. On the other hand, the hedgehog's a much simpler beast or creature. It doesn't have many moves. It's not trying to do a lot of different stuff, but it just has one thing it does. It curls up in a ball with spikes, and it just does it again and again, and it works every time. And so, I think one thing, that I've even heard from people at this festival, and I think it too, so I'm not being critical of anyone on the outside. It might be our branding, our messaging, or whatever, but we do a billion different things, right? You guys probably know us because we do a lot of animation, motion graphics. We do a ton of large branding work for companies. We do a lot of ideation and strategy for work that people never see. We do films, we make linear ads, we do a lot of live action work, we do a ton of audio tech, we do a lot of big experiential work, titles, films, whatever. But that's not, those are the mediums or the verticals that we play in. We just do one thing. We make music and sound, and we try to solve problems as they pertain to audio. So I think when you strip away what all of our marketing and our sales and the different reels on our website and all of the capabilities decks we have for different types of clients, we really just do one thing. And so I think, when we reduce it down to that, it's pretty easy to understand what our hedgehog concept is. And so, for example, if we jump back to March, we just finished a few pieces that we're super proud of. We did this big light and sound installation at the new Warner Media offices in Hudson Yards. There was this 12-story LED and speaker sculpture that was generative music. You could put in any of the content from Warner, HBO or CNN or whatever, and it would generate music based on the color palette of the content. We did work on this with Rare Volume, if you know them. They're just fucking geniuses. But we were proud of it. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but these are on our website. But we'd also done 30,000 square feet of galleries of the new Empire State Building experience, visitors experience, and recorded an orchestra in Prague, had done all of this work, and made this case study. It's just a snippet from it. We did a project with S. Devlin for a new Bjarke Ingels building on the west side of Manhattan, and we were all right, we've got these 3 awesome pieces in our experiential reel. We're gonna go out and build that aspect of the business. And then the pandemic struck, and immediately it was don't even think about saying the word experiential. Just put it down. Don't talk about live action. And we just said, all right, we're going to focus on animation, motion graphics. Everybody needs to get messaging out. Everybody needs to, put the communication through a medium that's possible and makes sense. So we look at motion graphic, animation, sonic branding jobs. And we just focused on that, and we had a huge, I can talk to anyone after who's a business owner and wants to chat about what a cash crunch looked like in the early pandemic, but we were fortunate enough to stay busy, and we just focused on, where the opportunities were. And so that was my case for, the ritual became for us, you just curl up and do the work. And I think once we made that, realization, everything became, it was still scary, but it became much easier. And so I think, I'll stop talking about pandemics in 2 slides, but I do believe that, one, we're fortunate, it's not, fingers crossed it won't get worse, but that it's not that bad of a pandemic. But in general, pandemics, they don't necessarily change anything of substance. They just speed up a lot of decisions that were going to be made or changes that were going to happen anyway. And so, my take is that you can sink, you can swim upstream and try to fight the current, or you can just sort of ride the wave of a faster delta of change. And I think, we're doing the same thing that we've always done and just trying to see, where the next wave will take us. But it's not a good time to be a fox, was the point I was supposed to say. So anyway, we're just trying to figure out, well, even if it's virtual and we're coming back into the office, and but finding a place, even if it's just metaphysical, where magic can happen, and letting everybody know that they belong there. So this is a little example of this would be a kind of cool place to be, even if it's not a physical environment, and maybe we can get people in here. So, yeah, and so all of this is to say, it doesn't always work out well, but when we get this right, it's easy and it's fun and everything just flows. So back to Dave Grohl. He bought this console from Sound City that recorded amazing records like him and Kurt and Chris's Nevermind. Rick Springfield, Jesse's Girl, was recorded on this, Tom Petty, a bunch of great records. So anyway, he made a documentary about this console, and I guess once they got it installed and set up in a new studio, he invited Paul McCartney to come. And they had this little interaction that's always stuck with me about when you get everything right, it becomes super easy.
Sounds pretty cool.
Should we do it in the other section too?
Okay.
Why can't it always be this easy?
It is.
So Paul's he's just living the dream. All right, I'm running up on time, but this is my last section, I'll wrap it up. Collaboration, I thought it'd be fun to kind of walk through an example of how we work in this remote environment. We had brought about 6 people day-to-day back into the studio in New York. Unfortunately, one person got COVID. He's totally fine, but it did sort of set us back. And so a couple weeks ago, we started making the title sequence that you saw, and you guys have seen this a few times. But Jay and the Dash folks had a pretty clear layout. They knew what they wanted to do. We had this dramatic countdown. We had some dainty, gallery Baroque music, which we actually love. And then some sort of more aggressive, raucous track. And, I love, a pink is punk. A $1,300 sweater is definitely punk. But I've always believed pink is punk. Whenever we press 7 inches, we always try to do it pink. And so one thing that was important to me is it's super easy to say, okay, we want aggression, destruction, whatever, distortion pedal on a guitar. I think actually what's cooler and more fun and more unique is if we think that clean, good clean fun can be more punk than distortion. So the guitars. Ida is punk. My friend and colleague Bennett, who you'll see here, we had sort of the remnants of a hurricane. My brother lives in Louisiana also, and he was totally fine, but we got all of this flooding in New York and Philly. And so Bennett has a 2-floor apartment and got like 3 feet of water in his, lower floor of his apartment where he had amps and drums and studio and whatever. I was like, dude, you don't have to come in, like, it's fine, just deal with it. Like, we can do it another day, or I can get Dalton to record. And he's like, no, I'm gonna do it. And so like he came in and was just like so angry and played drums for what you heard here. So, it's 2 videos that are not synced, but you can imagine. Cassettes are punk. Baroque is punk. This is Jen, who's an incredible producer and a flautist, and Rory, who's living the remote pandemic dream in Lisbon, but works for a New York and Amsterdam studio. This little, breaking things is punk. This is for real. Yeah. And we tried to get the Amsterdam crew involved, but they didn't really get it. And so here's a little behind the scenes. Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for being here. It's really special to be, in person again, and hope we can do this more in the near future. And as you know, I hope I've given a little insight to how we work and what we care about. But things, everyone ends their talk with this, right? It doesn't always go our way. But one thing I like to remember is whenever you have an unreasonable request from a client, just remember that Jodie Foster contacted aliens with an Eventide DSP 4000. Thank you.